23.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast. I'm your host, Claudia Castro. Got my co-host, Tim Park. We're at episode 23 of the Get the Bag podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining. Uh, like always, like this episode, subscribe to our channel. We are on really every week. We're back on schedule, kind of
Mm-hmm.
traveling over the last couple weeks, but back on here. So appreciate you guys joining. Today's topic, kind of near and dear, uh, and something we've all dealt with when we were kind of figuring out
Mm-hmm.
what do we want to talk about. I think the other day we were kind of planning out our topics for the rest, kind of the rest of the year, was how to embrace failure as an entrepreneur, because you as an entrepreneur you're dealing with a lot of failures, and sometimes it's hard to grasp, right? It's hard to
Yeah.
um, accept, and we kind of see a failure as like a setback, right? Or like, hey, I'm not getting any better, or this isn't working for me, and that's why a lot of people quit too, because they just don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to embrace it. So we're going to go through some tips, as well as kind of real life experiences. We've all kind of dealt with them, and you know, hoping these sort of tips really help all our entrepreneurs out there, viewers out there that are kind of going through it, and to not quit. Hopefully not,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's not for everybody, and I think you know we'll just take it one step at a time. So I think to start off with, um, why do we hate? Like, I mean, if we really want to break it down, like why, like failure? Why do we hate failure? Why do we feel like failure is such a bad thing? And maybe it's just how society has put it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because failure technically means lack of success.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and no, everyone just always wants to win, right? But that's not how life is, right? Like life isn't
Mm-hmm.
always about the highs. Life is about the
Yeah.
lows,
Yeah.
somewhere in between. Um, what kind of what's your sort of definition of failure? Like, how do you feel about when you hear the word failure?
Well, I think if you dive a little bit deep into failure, what are you actually thinking failure is? And I think a lot of it is disappointment from others, right? Instead of disappointment in yourself. Because um, a lot of times when you fail at something, you feel like you may be disappointing other people,
Mm,
whether it's your work, whether it's your parents, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your brother or sister, family members. I think you worry about them before you worry about yourself
mm,
in the failure. And I think even with business partners, I think you think, oh, I'm failing them or I'm failing the business, right?
mm-hmm.
And maybe that doesn't give you the confidence enough to pull the trigger in being an entrepreneur or doing something. And I think
Right,
a lot of that failure comes from that type of fear.
right.
And I think being fearful of something, regardless of what it is.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. Like, we never want to let people down, right? Like,
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing. But I think it's also like we don't want to let ourselves down. We feel,
Hmm.
I think Camille was saying, feeling less than.
Right.
But we always kind of have that tunnel vision, right?
Mhm.
With failure, and
Sure.
saying like, oh, nobody, like not thinking anyone, no one else has gone through what I'm going through. Like, it's very I don't know the word, but very personal in a way.
Mhm.
When we think of the failures that we've gone through, we don't think like no one else has been through it. But when you kind of look at it, everyone's gone through some type of failure. They've
Right.
needed to get through the failure. It was that push to get them over the top, to get them to the position they're in now. Like, I think of, I mean, we have the famous Michael Jordan story, right?
Mhm.
He didn't make his JV team or his
Right.
sophomore team, and that failure is what trickled him into
Mm-hmm.
becoming who he is now. Or I think of Oprah Winfrey,
Mm-hmm.
and super inspiring story, and her being told she couldn't do it. She came from poverty, like just her background itself. She shouldn't have been in the position she is now, but
Right.
somehow being told she wasn't good enough, being paid less is kind of is what pushed her to be
Mm-hmm.
the successful entrepreneur she is now. I think Bill Gates. I mean, there's just so many other
Yeah, so many
examples
examples.
of people, because we see them now as the success, right? Like the billionaires that they are now. We
Mm-hmm.
never, and I think this also falls in line with like people who find success, who are successful now. Us as like beginners, right? Like for us, it's hard not to have grace, or give ourselves grace, or give ourselves be patient. Like we've only been in the game for like 2 minutes, right? In real estate, we expect to be in this specific, I don't know, realm of real estate. But some people, to get the success they're in now, they've been in the game for a while, right? Like
Yeah.
5 plus years, 10 years. So how
Mm-hmm.
can we compare ourselves to that? Like, it's not fair. So I think it's, being unfair to ourselves, giving ourselves grace. And I think the moment you allow yourself to fail, allow yourself to make mistakes, that's what's going to move you forward. That's one thing I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it's going to feel good. It feels really shitty, actually failing, or
Yeah.
not, or like we've talked about deals too that have just gone south, or just maybe where we made our mistakes that lost the deals, right?
Yeah.
And all you can do is learn from them, is learn
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this, how can I avoid this mistake next time? So I think those sort of things is really what sets you apart, is how are you going to handle adversity, because
Yeah.
you're always going to run into adversity. um, when things shit gets hard, shit hits the
Mm-hmm.
fan, how are you going to adapt? How are you going to, what are you going to do? Are you just going to crouch and cry about it,
Mm-hmm.
and not do anything about it and just quit?
Right.
Or what are you going to do about it? And I think that's why so many entrepreneurs and people that started around the time that we did are no longer either entrepreneurs or are no longer in the business,
Right.
because it's just, it gets hard, and sometimes,
It does.
that's okay.
Yeah, it does. And I think when it does get hard, they make a conscious decision, whether it's their circumstance, whether it's their personal, or whether it's a situation where it's financial, right? And
Yeah.
so if they're not getting the money that they need right now, they're going to have to do something
Yeah,
else
that's another
until they
thing
can.
too, is that scarcity
Yeah, the
mindset.
mindset.
When
Yeah.
money is involved, when it's like, I gotta feed my kids, or I gotta put food on the table, I don't, I can't,
Hmm.
that makes it really difficult, because it's almost life or death, right? In that instance where, you can't, failing, it's like, I I mean, sure, I don't have the time to just fail and try things out. Like, it's so that's where, it's hard for us, especially people of color, uh,
Mm,
kind of going through it. Like, it's like, shit, I don't have time to do this. Like, I gotta feed, I got mouths to feed.
right. Right.
And so that, that's that can be another conversation, or we can go even
Yeah.
deeper in that, and just the um just how different demographics and have dealt with it. It's like, oh, okay, well, you had this opportunity, but all in all, like, you just have to push through. Like,
Right.
we know so many people, especially in our groups, who been through similar situations, who've just figured it out. It's all about
Yeah.
life is, it's all about figuring shit out, figuring out
Hmm.
through your failures.
Right.
Um, but I'd say kind of another sort of tip is like normalizing failure,
Mm,
right? Like,
yeah.
like kind of allowing it to not be a stigma, because I think it is a societal stigma around failure and how
Sure.
it affects entrepreneurs. Like, it's an essential part of the process. And I think we talk about that too, is enjoying the process. People don't enjoy the process enough. When you're so worried about failing, you're not you need to fall in love with that process.
Hmm.
You're so you're so focused on the outcome that you're not going to appreciate the
Yeah.
process, right?
Right. I think like one of my stories that I remember back when I was in school, college and stuff, and I wasn't a very good speaker. I'm not a very good speaker right now, but
Yeah,
um I
you're doing a podcast, bro. Like you good.
so we were part of this group, and we had to present in front of like CEOs of our project throughout the school year, right? And so I had a couple lines in there, and I would just mess up every time during practice. And I'm a athlete, football guy. So my professor pulled me aside and say, "Hey, just think of this as like a football game. What do you do? How do you prepare before a football game? I know you're nervous talking in front of these people. I'm sure you're nervous right before a game. What calms you down? Do that exact same process,
Mm,
before you go on stage or before you do the presentation." And that really helped me out. It normalized um, what was going to happen, really, and it
mm,
normalized like if I failed or if I messed up, just kind of move on and go from there. And I think it just sparked something in my mind that, hey, it's okay, like, because
mhm.
in as an athlete you fail all the time, right?
Yeah.
And whether it's a play, whether it's you know
Yeah.
um, a certain game, whatever it is. But what do? You come back and practice, and you come back and play another game. So I just that's when my mind kind of shifted, at least in the business sense.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a really great analogy too of like do whatever makes sense for you, right? So for you,
Hmm.
like you were just so nervous and whoever this person was, like he broke it down to simplistic terms, like
Hmm.
whatever process you did in sports, apply it. And that I think that goes for anything, right? Like
Hmm.
mindset, whatever, like whatever makes sense for you, like to get the job done or to just figure things out or get through it, follow that. I mean, for me, like to say like my younger self saying I'm doing a podcast that's accessible to thousands of
Right.
people, I would have shitted my pants. I was so quiet growing up. I was considered I wasn't considered, but people thought I was mute. That's how quiet I
Mm.
was growing up because I was so shy. And that kind of sheltered me into like being scared to sort of fail. I
Hmm.
hate feeling I was scared of, like, what were people gonna think of me or whether, people gonna say, and that was such a that affected my public speaking skills, until I think I was in junior college and I took a, public speaking class. That was really hard
Wow.
'cause, that's all the class was, is learning, how to your posture, learning, how to stand in front of others, and we were actually videotaped too. And a lot what I've learned too is like people don't care, like people want you to win when you do like public speaking or whatever.
Hmm.
We're so scared of like looking stupid or sounding stupid,
Right.
and people want you to do well, and they're cheering you on. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it kind of eases it. But I mean, I still get nervous like going in front of people or speaking out. Kind of my heart
Hmm.
starts thumping, and but
Right.
once it comes down to me, it's like it's fine. But I do agree. I think preparation is key in everything when it comes to public speaking. But I think with failure, I think we just overcomplicate it. We overthink it. It's just sort of just go out and do it. And I think the biggest thing in normalizing failure is to not take it personally. Failure is
Mm.
not a reflection of who you are as a person. It's just shit happens.
Right.
And you want to go through, like, even like Camille said, you want to go through as many mistakes. You want to fail as often as you can because
Hmm.
that's the quickest way to figure stuff out.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you do, I know she said she's excited to kind of hurry up the process of failing, and I think it's important. I mean, each person's going to go through their process and how their journey on whatever they're going to do, and and then you just kind of learn from that. And
Hmm.
I think all of my entrepreneur ventures and corporate employment has gave me the tools to kind of be successful in real estate. So I think I still fail. I mean, you still fail at this real estate game, but definitely learning as we're going. We're putting in our years, and I think we got a lot more to learn, but
Yep.
I think it's exciting for us for sure. We love that process.
Yeah, it's just a process, and allowing it to come to you, right? Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
don't I know Camille said, kind of hurry up, but maybe not so much hurry up. Like, just let it come to you. Like, and just knowing, hey, it's gonna happen.
Hmm.
Like, setting the expectations, it's gonna happen, and kind of adapting to it, right? Like, or more so adopting the learning mindset in terms of like failure is going to happen one way or another,
Right.
and that, hey, I need these lessons to make me a better person. I'm not going to be where I'm at. I mean, we've made mistakes to get us to the point we're at now. Like,
Hmm.
had we
Hmm.
not made the mistakes we made, I wouldn't be in this position, right? So
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just being open minded. Obviously, I think in having a learning mindset is reading up, seeing how other people have dealt with it, talking to
Hmm.
people. Um, and that kind of goes into like resilience and perseverance too, is like knowing what traits of those to like really bounce back too. But I think the biggest thing, and we've talked about in previous episodes, is having a really strong support network or just
Yeah.
community,
Hmm.
right? To kind of get you through, and knowing like, hey, like I've been through that. And I think that's why people, right, invest in mentors and
Yeah.
coaches too, to kind of to avoid those mistakes, right? But you
Hmm.
have to pay
Hmm.
up, you have to invest money in that.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is just talking to as many people, and you'll learn. You're like, hey, I fucked up hella times. I've made
Yeah.
tons and tons of mistakes. Um, and everyone always says the same thing. Like, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for that.
Hmm. And I think you resonate with, let's say, your mentor for some reason. I mean, each person gravitates to a certain mentor for some reason, and it's maybe because you made the same failures together in different ways, but you resonated. And I think that's how I came upon Chris. Is that he failed at a couple businesses and then got into real estate, and or they were real estate related, but I had failed at a couple businesses as well, and just starting over, and then knowing that someone had failed twice and could start over and do it again, that motivated me, right, and made me believe that I could do the same thing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's huge. Because I mean, people talk about that a lot. The way I look at it is you need these stories, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's how we talk about social media so big, and like sharing, documenting your journey. I can definitely do a better job of that. But like
We both can.
documenting your process, and like showing your failures. Not enough people talk about their failures, at least on social media. People don't talk about the ugly of wholesaling. Not enough,
Mm-mm.
probably. They talk about, oh, the checks. Maybe they'll write up, hey, yeah, this was a tough deal. But when it comes to marketing, people, maybe that would scare people off, right? If you talk
Hmm.
about, but that's what keeps it real too. Is like, this thing isn't all petals, roses.
No,
It's
it's not.
ugly, man. It gets really ugly. You got to deal with people that maybe don't have your best interests at heart, greedy people, just want to just take it's and but that's just part of it, right? And
Yeah.
kind of going back to dealing with failure too, is I see failure, sometimes you have to reverse engineer it, right? Like, why did I fail? Like, you kind of
Mm.
almost have to break it down, right? To like really conquer the failure or the fear of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, I failed at this. What what did I do, or how did I get to this point? And you just reverse engineer it, right? So maybe
Yeah.
there's a problem in your process, or the business model you have, or the way you approached, um, this lead, or the way, it allows you to uncover, I guess, lift the hood and uncover like the holes in your process, maybe. And a lot of times it's that, right? It's maybe that you miscommunicated something, or
Mm-hmm.
there was something wrong in your process, whatever the case may be. But that's one way where you view failure as something completely different than just like, oh, I fucked up. Oh man, what am I going to do? Instead of dwelling
Right.
in it, you really kind of conquer it by breaking it down and being like, oh, okay, I see the holes there. Let me apply these changes. And that's also the other problem, is people don't apply the changes. So
Mm.
when they make a similar mistake or failure again, they're like, oh, see what I'm doing isn't working. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what have you learned? What did you apply the other time around, from the previous failure? So people don't do that enough.
Yeah. And I think, just in your business, analyzing that data or the failures that you've had, and like you said, is just pivoting your strategy to adjust for that, to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I think it's super important to be able to be nimble in your business, to be able to do that.
Hmm.
And don't be set in your ways, in your process, because especially in this business, the market could change. So your process may have to adapt to the different strategies that you have to put in place for your business. So
Right.
just be open to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's super spot on. Is it's just adaptability as an entrepreneur. Like, you can't ever just sit and be like, okay, this process. I mean, there may be some areas where it's like, yeah, once that process is set, but there's always something that's gonna continue to happen. And I think just embracing it, the embracing like
Mm,
the risk, and knowing that, like, hey, this can lead to a breakthrough, right? And
right,
an
right.
opportunity. And I think for me, like, I've learned a lot. I think it just adds experience too, right? Like failure. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's when I think about, like, say, my first year in real estate, there's so many deals I could have probably closed, that I had
Yeah.
locked up, that were at the title, but it got really hard and I made some mistakes. I didn't know what I was doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I just I I didn't go deep enough, or maybe I gave up too easily because it got hard. And looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, now that with the knowledge I know now, I'm like, okay, I could have done that differently, or I could have done this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's like we're in that moment, we just scare ourselves too. So,
Yeah.
um, I think failure builds experience.
Mm.
I think that's the
That's a
biggest
bar right
thing
there.
thing I've learned, as an entrepreneur. You can't you can't gain experience, or you can't gain the knowledge without the experience too. So it's like it goes hand in hand. It's like a whole, kind of trickle effect with
Mm-hmm.
it. So, that's kind of how I viewed failure, is like when I fail at something, or maybe I made a mistake, I'm like, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
building experience. That's
Yeah.
it. Just
Yeah.
keep it simple.
Exactly. I think you have to take action to fail. Like if
Yeah.
you and,
I
and,
mean, yeah.
and non-action is a type of failure, but I think from the learn from your failures, you have to take action, right?
Yeah. I mean, they say that a lot too. Like, if you're not failing enough, you're not doing enough.
Right. Right.
So you have to take action, and that usually means if you're not running into enough problems, that means you're not doing enough either. So you want to fail as much as you can,
Yeah.
while especially when you're like learning something new.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's definitely spot on.
Yeah. I know we're coming down to it, but what are some maybe techniques that help you kind of reframe failure, or like maybe visualizing success, or like having realistic expectations?
Yeah, it's a good one. I would say for me is not falling in love with the outcome. right?
Mhm.
Falling in love with the process. That's one thing I learned. I think I used to have a post-it note somewhere that says, focus more on your journey than the outcome.
Mhm.
'Cause the outcome can be, I want to be a millionaire. I want to get, six-figure months every month, right? That would be ideal, right? Like
Right.
wholesaling. But if we just focus on that number, like you're not we're missing out on the a whole other aspect of it, right? What about the process? Like you have to make it fun. So
Mhm.
for me, it's all about making things fun. I always say I'm a big kid at heart. Like I love to just joke around and have fun. And I think sometimes as adults we stop we stop having fun. We don't make things
Mhm.
fun. We take things too seriously because life is too short. Like
Mhm.
life should be about being happy and doing what you love. And so for me, it's is making things fun. So it's like, yeah, this documentation, but I look at it like, oh, I have an opportunity to do this or do that. So
Right.
I really kind of try to, I guess, break down the whole overarching thing of whatever my goal is, whatever I'm trying to
Mhm.
reach. Try to break down fear as well. It's like, um, but while you're in it, when you fail, it doesn't feel good, but at
Mhm.
the same time, I think I've equipped myself with not only like listen to podcasts or books, but also like taking it easy on myself. Considering myself, it's like imagining me as like a 10-year-old.
Mhm.
Like I feel like that's how we should give ourselves grace. We should um take not take it easy in the sense of like not taking action, but
Right.
taking it easy in the sense of like, hey, you tried. What else can we do?
Mhm.
Kind of
Right.
thing, right? And taking it
Mhm.
easy on yourself. So those sort of things have really helped me out. But I think the biggest thing is not focusing on the outcome and
Mhm.
just knowing like, okay, part of the journey is me failing. And so if I fail at something or didn't get something right, I go, okay, that's just part of the journey.
Mhm.
Let's keep it moving. What
Right.
about you?
I think there's an overall goal, but like you said, I don't focus on like the future outcome. I focus on like the journey and the process, and the relationships that I have built, and the laughs that I've had, and the um, the failures that I've learned from. So it's all a part of the journey, like you said. And I think for me, um, you know, enjoying that process and building those relationships, because the
Mhm.
relationships that I've built in the 3 years that I've been in this business has been priceless, right? And
Yeah.
some people have fallen off, some people haven't, but I try to still communicate with those people to make sure that they're doing well, or you know I think I called, you remember Maurice? I called him a couple months ago, and then
Mm.
I think you had called him too, and a couple other people had called him. He's like, "That means I have to get back into real estate." I think that's a sign, right? So it was kind of funny, just building those relationships is important for me in my business, and I think I enjoy that the most. And building this podcast, and then our partnership as well in real
Mhm.
estate
Mhm.
has been very enjoyable for me, and I look forward to doing more of that and being successful at that with all my partners. So.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean, like, just having fun with it. Like, enjoy the process, like, because it's gonna be ugly, and you don't wanna be alone during that process, right?
Mm-mm.
Because you are gonna fail, and I think Camille said it great, like, you have to celebrate those small wins, and I think that's also another thing is, especially once things start clicking, we wanna see those home run deals, right? We wanna
Mm-hmm.
see those 30K and up deals, but, like, 2K deals are like, but like what's that real word? A win is a win. Win is a
Yeah.
win. I don't
A
care what
win's
you
a win.
say. A win's a win.
A win's a
But
win.
I mean, it's true. Any little win, and that's something. Anytime I'm in the U and people starting out, I say enjoy. Like we always ask like, what's a win for this week?
Mm-hmm.
My win can be, hey, I bought a list. Hey, I talked to one. I made a call. I made one phone call. Hey, I got a
Mm-hmm.
lead. Hey, I got a contract. hey, I got a assignment, I got a buyer. Hey, I closed a deal. Like there's small wins along the process, of like, or hey, I built a new relationship with a broker, or like
Right.
those should all be viewed as wins. But I think once you get to a point where you're successful and maybe have what you've always wanted or what you asked for,
Mm-hmm.
we get a little greedy too, right? We're like, oh man, like we want to complain about things, or we get a little too cocky or whatever. But just embrace it. Like it's all part of it. Like, and enjoy
Mm-hmm.
those small little wins, because you're gonna need them. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to find something, because it gets so hard to get
Yeah.
to the ultimate outcome or whatever your goal is, right? So to keep things going, we talk about that momentum too. You have to you that's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think
Um,
these are all like excellent points. Yeah, comment below for sure on maybe some of the things that work for you on in overcoming failure. That would be great. Hit us up anytime too, in regards to staying positive, or what's some ways to actually kind of learn from your failures.
mhm.
But yeah, definitely. I love this episode, and I think it's important to talk about.
Absolutely. I think we need to have more of these conversations. We probably need to have more posts of failures,
Mm,
because it's real. People
yep,
fail, and that's okay. You know,
yep, it's okay.
embrace it, accept it. You know, find whatever resources you need, whether it's podcasts, but just normalize it. Let's normalize failure. That it's okay to fail, and it's okay. Like life isn't just about the glamour of IG and all the cars and checks and everything like that. Like li- life isn't like that. Life isn't
Yeah,
just the highs. Just remember
yeah.
that. Life is about
Avoid
the
the eye
highs and the
candy.
lows. Yeah, exactly. So, really appreciate you guys tuning in, and you know, shout out to Camille. Is always on
Yeah, love it.
she's our marketing manager. She's posting our stuff on Discord. So appreciate the
Yeah,
love,
appreciate
sis.
the love.
But again, really appreciate you guys tuning in and, and listening. Yeah, drop a like, drop a comment, question, any sort of topics you would like us to discuss. We do have some guests coming up over the next couple weeks. I'm really excited to talk about.
Hmm.
Um, and we have some events coming up too
Yeah, I'm excited
that
about
we
that too.
happening the end of this month. So really excited too, as we expand our network, trying to work our podcast as well. Getting expanding
Yeah,
our
exposure.
podcast for sure. So hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you guys next week.
All right, fam.
All right, later.